So McGregor Metal is a contract manufacturer. We make metal parts and assemblies for a variety of industries. So our main three customers are John Deere, Honda, and Toyota. And I'll tell you, that was so myopic of me to think that success was dollars and cents. It's not. Success is great retention. Success is full employment. Success is community involvement. Our very nature in what we do, we're innovative, right? We're in manufacturing and we're Americans, right? So we're going to figure out solutions to problems and adapt in an innovative way to keep making the product, because necessity drives us to that. If we stop doing that, we're out of business.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the NextGen Strategies Podcast. Joining me as always, Mr. Tyler Davis, and we are in an awesome location down here in Springfield, Ohio at McGregor. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for being here, and thanks for putting up with a little noise.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to capture definitely the authentic kind of backdrops on the noise and some of the awesome stuff that's going on here, because this is a heck of a facility and a heck of a company in our little time touring around earlier today.
Yeah, thank you. We're thrilled to have you here, and to do what we do, we have to make noise.
That's right.
And make a little smoke.
That's right.
With the welders firing off in the background.
That's right.
Here.
Heck yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with McGregor Metal, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what are some of the awesome things coming out of this place?
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks so much for being here, and thanks for having me on the show. So McGregor Metal is a contract manufacturer. We make metal parts and assemblies for a variety of industries. So our main three customers are John Deere, Honda, and Toyota. And that comprises about 75% of our work here. So we make parts for combines, for cars, for lawnmowers, and a lot of stuff in between.
Awesome. And, this isn't something that just spurred up in the last couple of years. It's been a couple years. Tell us a little bit about, you've been around.
Yeah, we have, and we're fortunate for that. So I'm G3, and in the sort of space, G3 is known as the one that screws the place up.
Sure.
G1 has the idea, the founder. G2 works his or her tail off. G3 was born with a silver spoon, doesn't come to work, and is entitled. So we're trying to avoid that, because my generation, if it survives through me, the sky's the limit. So anyway, this year marks our 61st year in business.
Yeah,
which is really pretty neat, and it hasn't come without change. To look back where we started in 1965 to where we are today and where we're going, I don't think my grandfather could have ever predicted. But that's just the nature of our space and our business.
Yeah, absolutely. You said, we laughed where it's kind of like that third generation is sometimes the one that screws it up. So how, as you've come into leadership, how has that shaped your mindset and your approach to things?
Yeah, I think I'm so glad to be in this position at 49.
Sure.
Because, I knew it all. When I first started out, there was nothing I didn't know.
Exactly right.
And so I think being in the position that I'm in today, there's so much more that I don't know than I do, right? And I say all the time to folks, I didn't go to CEO school, so this is my first time. And so, I think leading with that honesty, that brutal honesty, and when asked a question you don't know the answer, saying I don't know, or let's figure that out together, is really important, because I think it shows the team that's why they're there. We're all needed to solve these problems, because I certainly don't know it all.
Yeah, people talk about the imposter syndrome all the time, and I feel like if you don't feel that, you got to be kidding yourself to a certain extent. And then you come to the realization that, I don't know everything.
Right.
And I'm going to have and find people and resources to help me figure it out and know your strong points.
That's right. And I think it teaches the rest of the organization that it's okay sometimes when they don't know, too. Because if Jamie doesn't know, then it's okay if I don't, and we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes, it's important to reflect too, as you come into a business that has been around for so long, reflect on some of the things that have gotten you to this point.
Yeah.
And I think we'll definitely touch on this today, which a lot of times seems to be surround yourself with really good people.
Yes. And the other thing that I have to mention too is my business partner is my 82-year-old uncle. Okay. And I was never supposed to be his partner, right? It was my dad who was his partner.
Sure.
And when Dad passed away unexpectedly about 15 years ago, he had to deal with me. And I think sort of his grace, in accepting change and allowing change, and he slows me down at the appropriate times, and prevents me from making catastrophic errors. In the moment, I might be irritated, but I think it's for the betterment of the company because he has been around and seen it. And so I think that working together, because family-owned businesses, there's a lot of tension between generations, especially if it's not like parent-child, but like uncle-nephew. And so a lot of credit goes to him for just sort of, are we sure we want to do that? Let's take some more time, because I want to walk briskly. I mean, we have to walk briskly. So yeah, the family piece adds an interesting dimension.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of our listeners can resonate with that, whether they are folks that are coming into kind of those leadership positions within family-owned businesses, or being on the other side, like your uncle, who are maybe, trying to kind of let go, but let go slowly in a way that, hey, walk, jog, run.
Yes.
And I think that's a feeling that's often, both sides of the coin there.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my relationship with him, back in 2011 is very different than it is today. It's much more functional because of all the things that I don't say, right?
Sure.
That I used to just pop off and say in a moment. And so, it's a much more functional, just because of the nature of experience and age and growth and all those things.
Yeah.
So with your experience with the company, I'm assuming you weren't CEO overnight. So
No.
what did that look like for you kind of coming into the family business and your kind of trajectory through it?
Yeah, so we have a family employment policy. So if family members want to work in the business, they have to go to college, they have to get a 4-year degree, they have to work elsewhere for 3 to 5 years. So I came to the business after having spent 3.5 years down in Birmingham, Alabama at a similar business.
Sure.
But I knew it all. So, my first really 15 years were in a sales role.
Okay.
And I was really the voice of McGregor in front of the customer. And that's where I sort of like to play still, just because I enjoy the art of the deal. I like going after the chase, the negotiation, and everything else.
Yeah.
When I became CEO in 2018, it wasn't necessarily something I aspired to do. It just sort of happened. And so that's when I thought, that first day on the job, I sat in my new office, I closed my door and I cried, because I was like, I don't know what to do.
Sure.
What is a CEO supposed to do? And that's a true story. I mean, that was June of 2018. And so I thought, God, there's nobody less qualified than me to do this. And here we are, 7 or 8 years later, and it's made a lot of mistakes, but had a lot of good fortune too.
Well, let's talk about that. What do you think, or what is your position on what a CEO should do? I'm sure it looks different for every business, but what's your take?
Cheerlead. In a word, cheerlead.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk a lot about this. In order to be a good leader, one has to be optimistic.
Yeah.
In the face of adversity in the deepest and the darkest hour. And you have to lead with hope and optimism and cheerlead, even in the darkest times, because it's easy to celebrate. But how do you lead through pain? I mean, it's like Winston Churchill. When you're walking through hell, keep walking, because eventually you're going to be out of hell, right? And, we had some times in our recent history post-COVID where, I thought we were going to lose the whole thing because we had booked way too much business. We launched it through the pandemic, and we were underpriced. And there were some weeks where payroll was in question, and that's not a joke. Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of interesting how that perspective, now when I come home at the end of every day and my wife says, how was your day? I said, well, we're going to make payroll this week. She said, well, nothing else matters then, does it?
Yeah.
And when you're feeding 300 or 400 other families, that's a big deal. So all of a sudden, like the missed shipment, too bad, but everybody's going to get paid.
Yeah.
Or the quality spill. Gosh, I hate that happened. But, I think with time comes perspective, and now I can really look back and be like, well, payroll's safe. Does anything else really matter? I mean, of course it does.
Right.
But when you're in an acute situation like that, we just kept walking, right, and got through it.
And so I think a lot of people, especially in this space, with supply chains being what they were during COVID, and just the uncertainty and all the things that came with that, the restraints around safety and all these other things. So like, what did that dynamic kind of look like in here? And I'm sure like from the employee side, like sure you're dealing with the folks that are looking for orders to show up, or you're hoping that suppliers come in, but like what did that kind of dynamic look like in the shop, and like what were some of the things that were going on during that time?
Yeah, so we didn't build a car in this country for 9 weeks, and our business is 50% auto, right? So there was no North American auto manufacturing for 9 weeks, and when your orders go to zero, right, it's problematic.
Right.
However, we were not alone, which made the situation tenable. It was me and everybody else that does what I do, right? So I think, when you can commiserate with others about your situation, it's less embarrassing. It's less shameful because that my biggest competitor, I could call him up and he had the same issue, right? And so I think that's what made COVID tenable as I look back. Now, walking through at the time, it was terrible. We skinnied down to 90 people. It was brutal. But we made it because we were in the same boat as everybody else. So I could call others and say, hey, how are you doing? How are you dealing with this? And sort of share in the trauma and the pain together.
Yeah, for sure. And then I would assume, like you said, you went down to, around 90 people, like you had to then scale things back up. And I'm guessing there's a lot of maybe perspectives around people and culture that maybe came out of that time you've maybe started to build at that time, and now has also now blossomed to where we're at now.
Yeah, it's interesting because COVID did bring about so much good in the fact that we really leaned in on the employee experience at McGregor Metal.
Sure.
And we identified some behaviors and some traits that sort of make us different, things that we did all the time that we just didn't know. And so we have 4 key characteristics that we talk about all the time. The first one is first name first. I'm Jamie, you're Grant, you're Ty. We call each other by our name here, okay? We aren't numbers. And so as we walk through the shop and we talk to people, there's Charles. Yep. We call them by their name. And that doesn't cost the business a penny.
Yep.
But it does give our associates a sense of importance, pride, belonging, and all the things that are so vital and so important because they might not have that elsewhere because leadership just doesn't champion that. Yeah. Okay, so first name first. The second is whatever it takes. During COVID, we went from nothing to working 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. I mean, I would run a welder. My uncle's running a pack line. Our spouses were in the shop. We were doing whatever it takes. And sometimes you don't want to do it, but you have to. The third one is important information immediately. So it's like sometimes bad things happen. Let's talk about it. Let's be open. Let's be transparent. Let's share in the news because with the problem, we can share in the solution and fix it. Sure. There's not a secret, right? Because secrets are bad. In the absence of information, people make up a story that isn't generous. Yeah. And the last one was we are one. We were 4 companies, 4 identities, 4 cultures, and we said, you know what, we're going to share resources. We're McGregor Metal. We're one company. So whether you work in this building or around the corner or in Innisfallen Avenue, it's a shared company experience, right? And so we talk about these things every single day, and we do more than talk about them. We act them out. We behave in that way. And it was really magnetic, because people really had been missing that. I mean, yesterday we had a retirement party for an associate who'd been with McGregor for 28 years. And so we had a big party and cake and bourbon chicken. And, Lenny, why did you stay here? Just because it's a great place to work. You felt like you were not a number. You could be a part of a team to make a difference, and you felt appreciated. And when that's genuine, it is magnetic. It draws you in a way that you just can't leave. Now, magnets also push away.
Yep.
So it has an equal effect on people that might not prioritize that or might not need that. But if that's not you, then that's not here.
Well, I'll give him credit. I'll give Jamie credit. We walked up and down this floor, 3 times, and he didn't miss a wave or a hello to anybody out here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that took a lot, because I remember the first time I got into leadership, you forget like the influence that you have on people. And I'm sure there have been many a times you came coming out of that office with something on your mind in the back of here, and it's so easy to forget all the people that you just walked by.
Yep.
And it's so simple what you do and what you did.
And it's free.
Yes. But you have to recognize that and go, hey, I know I got something really burning in my mind. I'm going to go tackle an issue, but it's so easy just to be like, hey, Jim, how are you?
Yeah.
How are the kids?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that people value that and they appreciate that, and that's one of the things that makes us different.
I think one of the things that, obviously come from the marketing side, right? Like when you start talking about like culture and values, like, those are so important, but they can sometimes be really, really hard to like ingrain in a team. Like, you might have some input when you're first kind of developing that, and then leadership does certain things, but especially for the new people that are coming in who maybe haven't been here or they don't know what maybe some of these things, like what are maybe some things that you could share? Like how have you been able to like instill those things, like whether it's a new person or somebody who's been here, we're like, hey, like we're holding you to a certain standard of these things now.
I'm looking around. It's one word, swag. Cool swag, right?
Nice.
How many cool McGregor metal t-shirts did you see?
I just told him on the drive up, I was on your website, I was like, they got a merch store. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, we're constantly giving away swag and stuff, and I see it all over town. I was at Dunkin' this morning, and I saw one of her associates with her 2 girls. Often I see them on Friday mornings, and she's emblazoned with a McGregor metal jacket, McGregor metal t-shirt.
Nice.
No, but in all seriousness, I think it's by doing and consistency. It's a requirement sort of in leadership that these are the tenets to which we subscribe, and they never take a day off. Mm-hmm. Never. And that tenacity and that grit and doing that day after day after day makes it more than just lip service, more than just the calendar, the 4 icons on the calendar, because this is how we behave. So it's more than just, talk is cheap. It's how you behave and do it consistently every single day.
Yeah, and this might be a hot topic. You might have thoughts about it too. But what I've noticed too with how large private equity and those types of groups have targeted Main Street and small businesses, this is one of the things that gets lost immediately. And you see this attrition with staff because new leadership comes in, no one knows anybody. You can't put a face to a name, and you're just a number on a spreadsheet. And what you see consistently with businesses like McGregor, we talked about French Royal a little bit earlier, been around for a long time. A lot of people have worked there for 30 years. Their grandpa worked there.
Yes.
And it's as much of a family business for all the employees as it is the family that owns it.
Yes, it is.
And it's kind of frustrating to see that experience kind of slip away from us over time.
It is. And I think, yes. I mean, communities like Springfield, you look at our manufacturing footprint today, 2026 versus even 5 years ago, and the number of businesses who are just no longer here, whatever's happened, and whether it's private equity or not.
Yeah.
The nature of manufacturing is changing. Yep. And you're either changing or you're dying and you're going away. And so, there's more in 26. McGregor's going to look different in 27.
Yeah.
Just because we have to. And so if you have a willingness for that, but you also have to, as a leader, you have to sort of be measured and metered in your approach, because not everybody changes at the same pace.
Yep.
And so being mindful of that and really putting your back into bringing some along. And sometimes people just can't deal with the change, and they have to make a change, right? But we're always mindful of that, because I want to be around, right? And so I know that, McGregor of 1995 is, we have very few of those same customers today that we had in 1995. And that's just the nature of it. Customers come and go, but we look for things in customers like we look for in people. We want a relationship. We want trust. And so we're somewhat selective and somewhat picky about that. And we went through in 23, a period where we sort of culled the customer list and identified about a dozen customers that we just didn't share the same values. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't ask our associates, to put their heart and soul into products for customers for whom we did not share similar, and that takes discipline, but boy, are we better for it.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot, about growth isn't just a vanity number.
All money is not not good money.
And there's ways to growth that are meeting value sets, meeting the type of work you want to do, all of those things. And I think sometimes it is easy to forget and just chase more business. You know,
the probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made as a leader was my quest for us to be $100 million in sales. And we knocked on the door of that, and we've never lost more money in 1 year than that year. And I'll tell you, that was so myopic of me to think that success was dollars and cents. It's not. Success is great retention. Success is full employment. Success is community involvement, beautifying your building in a disadvantaged neighborhood. I mean, it's all these other things. So the top line number, come on, it about killed me and at that time 450 people at McGregor.
Yeah.
So that was just it was this vision that I had that, I will have made it at 100 million and boy, not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Do you think that journey is what kind of taught you that it was going after the right type of business and not necessarily just the volume?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, our journey that we had internally about people and culture applies beyond the walls of McGregor. That applies with customers too, and suppliers. It applies to sort of your own personal life, right? I mean, the older I get, the more selective I am with how I spend my time, right? Because my time is finite. I don't know if today is my last day or when I'm 92. I don't know. But I have to really be intentional and focused on things that fill my cup. Yeah. And call me selfish, but I want to reserve that time for people and situations and trips and family moments and work moments and surround myself with people in my life that I'm additive and they're adding to me, right? And so that's really come into focus in the last couple of years. Just because I think with age, you become a little bit more introspective.
Do you put a lot of value in the legacy of what McGregor is? Maybe legacy is the wrong word, but just we've talked about like your piece in the community and the family business, because as like a first generation business owner now, like that's something that strikes my mind is like it'd be really cool to have something that outlasts me and means something to more than just me.
Yeah, I think because I'm G3, I don't want to mess it up. Okay, I don't want to crash the plane, but like I don't think of legacy in that way.
Mm-hmm,
sure. We've been kicking around Springfield, the McGregors, since like 1872. So my kids are like sixth generation. So I think legacy of more than just McGregor metal, and just being involved in a community that's on the rise. And Springfield is. We've been through it, and we were in the middle of it. I mean, I was personally, McGregor Metal was, just because of our stance about the Haitian community. Legacy for me looks different.
Yeah.
And you mentioned some of those ways, and this I think ties back to what you were saying too. Like a company like this, yes, you are providing employment, hopefully contributing to meaningful lives for your employees, and I think sometimes where these like really large companies or these private equity firms come in, they see everything as a number. Like they're doing things that are just driven by a balance sheet or a profit and loss statement. And you are looking at, my investment, my legacy, what I leave behind is the impact that I can make in my employees' lives, and then what they go out, it sounds like, and do in the community that helps improve Springfield as a whole, because they had a structure and a place of confidence here that then they could go out and do this.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think, there's a place for private equity, and sometimes you make decisions that you have to as a business owner, but that's a complicated, one.
Well, it's necessary in many instances,
but it's also devastating.
Yeah, it brings a lot of capital into business, and there are situations where it's great, but at the same time, it's got its, like I said, success stories, horror stories, just like any other business.
And it's interesting because as I look at our executive team, 3 members of our executive team all came back to family-owned business from PE.
Okay, sure.
And recently, one's in a finance role, one's in an operations role, and one's in a sales role. And they all worked for private equity before McGregor.
Yep.
And they were like, hey, it's good to be back.
Yep.
Where,
Yep.
We can make a decision in my office right now and go, and it's generally a good decision that is not short-sighted. It's very long-term in its nature and effect.
Yeah, for sure. If you were to have an interview with young Jamie, and you were to offer maybe one or two pieces of advice, what would that be?
Boy, shut your mouth.
Sure.
I think it's listen. I knew it all. And I see this in our own children today, because we have 3 kids, 21, 20, and 15. And, I just look back and see so much of myself in them as they are quick to react or have an opinion about something they don't know anything about. And it would have been helpful for me to just use my ears more. But it's also impossible to tell a kid that.
Yeah.
There's no fast forward button on any of that. You just sort of have to go through those steps and put your foot in your mouth and step in it and do and say things that you're like, eesh. At least for me, it was trial by fire, and making mistakes and figuring stuff out. So today, even with our own kids, as long as they aren't going to hurt themselves or anyone else, sometimes they have to make that mistake to feel it in order to say, ooh, that's hot. I don't want to get burned again, right? So you have to have the wherewithal to sort of let those things happen. And even in my role as CEO, I don't agree with every decision we make around here.
Sure.
Sometimes I'll die on the hill, not often. And other times I say, I don't know if I agree, but go ahead. As long as you're not going to hurt yourself or somebody else, let's see how it goes. Because that's the thing, with change, you can always come back.
Yep.
I mean, we're dynamic, and we have to go with something, and then, didn't work, let's go back. There's no harm in that.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up here, we talked a lot about kind of the history and the things that you do here and the investments in people, and there's a lot of really, really good takeaways in terms of just the value and how you've instilled those different things culturally. I think it's so cool. I'm going to get it. I'm going to figure out a way to get a T-shirt. But then,
well, you just let me know.
As we look forward now, right? Like to the rest of this year, next year. Like, what are some of the things that excite you about McGregor, where McGregor's going, and some of the opportunities that exist?
Yeah. So I think one of the most exciting things about 26 is that we are launching a big new project for the U.S. Air Force, for the government, and it's a really interesting space for us because it's brand new, it's diversification, it's highly automated, significant investment in CapEx to make these parts, and so that's getting ready to launch. And so I think we're going to see continued investment in technology in the future, just because we have to deal with the realities of today's employment landscape, and just acknowledge some of the realities of what kids want to do today, where they want to hang out, and what they want to do for a living. And so, we have to sort of get ahead of that. And I'll tell you, we can't be a victim. We just, by our very nature and what we do, we're innovative, right? We're in manufacturing and we're Americans, right? So we're going to figure out solutions to problems and adapt in an innovative way to keep making the product with either fewer people or less square footage or different equipment or different ways, because necessity drives us to that. If we stop doing that, we're out of business. So I think change, this new launch, investment in the business and capital and technology, that's what's on the horizon.
Well, it's exciting to hear, because I think if you follow business news, like, everything is always about what's next in this big tech-driven AI, data center, this, whatever. And I think we forget about a lot of the middle of America, the manufacturing businesses. Like, they were the absolute heart, blood, and soul of the country 20 years ago.
Yes.
And that we've had amazing growth in technology, but that is going to be in manufacturing as well. And all this innovation you're talking about is is gonna. It's encouraging to hear about some of like the reshoring efforts and how much we're investing into making quality products here with family businesses that really can be a significant staple of a small community.
Yeah. I mean, you can't drive a Honda Accord without McGregor. Mm-hmm. You cannot operate a John Deere combine without McGregor. You can't drive a Sequoia without McGregor, and companies like us, right? And so manufacturing is very much alive and well. We just need to continue to reinvent ourselves and what we look like in order to keep our spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. I think there is a lot of takeaways for our listeners, and one thing I'll ask, like, for folks who maybe want to follow along with McGregor or you, like, where can they find you? Where should they be looking?
Oh gosh, I don't do this well.
You're doing okay right now.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good. This is
I don't
great.
do this well. Like, I would venture to say our LinkedIn page is probably a little more dated than it should be. Our website's pretty cool, especially as you look around our space. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to be different. In my space, you go to the McGregor website and then look at some others, and it's like, wow, the McGregor website really looks great.
Yeah.
But I really don't have a great answer for that, just because it's something that we need to do better. I wouldn't say that we're on the cutting edge of getting our message out there. But I love to help business owners, family members, family firms, just sharing stories and listening, because I think sometimes it's just being a good listener and being able to commiserate with others about their situation makes people feel better.
Well, I do have a question, because we talked a little bit off the camera. It sounds like you're involved in several different types of boards, whether nonprofit or for-profit.
Yeah.
And Grant and myself have found ourselves on some boards. So do you feel that has provided a lot of value, circling yourself with other people who may be like you and just hearing stories and all of that?
Yeah, I think when in leadership, and especially when you're going through a tough time, you want to be reassured that you aren't alone, right? You want to be assured that you aren't the only one who've experienced that, right? Because with all these great big successes, those leaders and those companies had failures and near bankruptcies, and probably did declare bankruptcy along the way, which doesn't get talked about a lot, right? And so I think it's important to encourage people to feel the feels and to understand that they are not alone, because it's, especially in the era of today where everybody's great on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and all the stuff. I mean, everything's rosy. Things are not rosy, right? And it's okay that they aren't rosy. Together we can figure it out.
Well, you are right. When you look around online, it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong.
You're inadequate.
Pretty much all the time.
Yes. Yeah. That you're inadequate and that everybody else is beating you. And that's just, forget that. Which may be why we don't have that presence, is just because I don't want to weigh into that.
Yeah.
Although that would be unintentional. I couldn't claim that was on purpose. Fair. But as we talk about it, it's like, maybe that is why.
But it sounds like to me you're getting a lot of that, though, the mentorship and the working with people in like similar places in some of the things you're doing even outside the doors.
Oh,
here,
heck yes. Absolutely.
And getting involved and engaged in different, nonprofits, this and that, other boards.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Sometimes I talk about it a lot. It's like, sometimes going and touching grass and being in real life is probably the most valuable thing you can do. And
well, and for me, it's coming out on the floor. And being out among, what we do, and at the end of the day, smelling like, I've been in the weld shop all day. So,
heck yeah.
Sure, your wife loves that.
Yeah, she's come to expect it.
That's awesome.
That's right.
Well, thanks again, Jamie, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And we're looking forward to having a bunch of other great guests and great episodes. So, till next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the NextGen Strategies Podcast, where we share real stories and practical strategies to help you grow your business. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to like and share it on all of our social media channels.